Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And it's been a while since we talked about South Africa, so let's look at this article from Reuters, which says South Africa's Ramaphosa proposes new sovereign wealth fund, according to party officials. And as the article goes into, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has proposed setting up a sovereign wealth fund to help boost economic growth, and his ruling African National Congress backs the plan, two senior party officials said on Tuesday. Ramaphosa, who replaced scandal-plagued Jacob Zuma as ANC leader late last year, is trying to rekindle growth before next year's national election. That's always the time to do it. There were no immediate details on where the money for the fund would come from, of course. Most sovereign wealth funds utilize revenues from oil and gas exports. South Africa does not have significant energy deposits, but has a large, albeit struggling, mining industry. The idea of setting up a sovereign wealth fund, which other emerging markets such as Russia use to lift growth at times of weak commodity prices, was dropped by South African officials several years ago when commodity prices plunged. And I quote, "We support the idea put forward by the president of the creation of a sovereign wealth fund," ANC Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte told reporters on Tuesday. "It's another mechanism to ignite our economic prospects. South Africa's economy has performed poorly this year despite a short-lived pickup in business and consumer confidence around the time that Ramaphosa replaced Zuma as ANC leader. Economists are skeptical that South Africa, a major producer of commodities such as gold and coal, could easily set up a sovereign wealth fund given its large budget deficit and shrinking mining sector. Zizi Kodwa, a member of the ANC's National Executive Committee, told Reuters that it would be government that would decide which revenues to use to set up the fund. South Africa has a lot of mineral wealth, but it's not up to the ANC to decide where to take the money," Kodwa said. "A sovereign wealth fund could be an important source of stimulus. That is what we are saying." So, John, let's talk a bit about a sovereign wealth fund. We've talked about the Norwegian sovereign wealth fund on several occasions, and I mean, it just, there's a lot of problems that build up over time with these kinds of issues, and I think it would be good to first talk about what exactly a sovereign wealth fund is and how it affects the economy and markets.
Yeah, well, sovereign wealth fund is a fund that funnels money from the money that the government steals from the people and put into, different investments. They mostly invest in stocks and bonds. Like the Norwegian sovereign wealth fund is now at about 70% stocks and I think it's 18% bonds. So it's just paper. Most of these funds are just funneling money into papers, and they've been used lately to, prop up stock markets all across the world because they were massive slush funds that could just shove in a whole bunch of money to save, a downfall in the economy. Now, I wanted to take a look at South Africa's top 5 commodities. And when you look at that, it's an interesting kind of lineup. We got platinum, which is, one of the precious metals. They have $6.3 billion. This is numbers from 2016, by the way. $6.03 billion in annual, revenue from that. Coal briquettes, so coal, 3.81%. Iron ore, 3.58%. Diamonds, which we can talk about the value of those, Josh.
Blood diamonds.
1.97 billion, and then citrus fruit, 1.16. So I kind of wonder where they're going to get their money from. I guess the government is going to impose and take over a whole bunch of the mining industry in order to control it, so they could funnel a whole bunch of revenue that way, or even just impose, more taxes and stuff. And now with, of course, commodity prices being so low, especially the precious type of metals like platinum, you could also add in maybe iron ore into that. You're going to add on taxes onto that, onto a struggling mining industry on top of that. Well, you're not going to go anywhere. So I can't even see how South Africa is going to try to create a sovereign wealth fund that's going to be any stable or any good at all, especially when you look at where the economy is going now. Platinum, they could steal a lot of that probably when prices goes up again. But if they, funnel the money, the income from the platinum into paper, it's stupid again. So maybe they could be smart to hold actual physical gold like no sovereign wealth fund does. I think that would be probably a good idea. Looking at Norway selling all their gold, and a whole bunch of other countries.
Canada.
Yeah, Canada. But Canada, of course, didn't create a wealth fund. I actually spoke to the energy minister of Norway now. Well, she was at the current time, she was the, the ambassador to Canada for Norway. And I spoke about her. She was actually at the same time going to Alberta to try to promote, building a sovereign wealth fund from the oil industry there. It's just the idea that you're trying to create, a fund, and it's almost used in Norway also as a pension fund. And the problem is they're investing so much money into this paper, and there's no real, value behind all this paper. It's 90, well, even more, I think, just paper assets. What are you basing all these investments on in the first place? It's dangerous. It's as I said, it's just used as a vehicle to manipulate markets all across the world now, because the central banks have kind of run out of almost anything now. So they're just looking at paying off maybe sovereign wealth funds to do a little bit of manipulation to help them keep the economy propped up for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and of course, when it comes to the diamond sector, I mean, all this, it's all just gaming markets, gaming the system. But when you look at something like diamonds, for example, I mean, that's a hugely gamed market. That's a hugely manipulated market. Yeah, I mean, they don't have as much scarcity in diamonds as they claim they do. There's a
lot of stuff behind that. You can look at a lot of videos. I looked at a lot of documentaries, and there's a lot of doubt behind the actual physical, supply and demand value that you actually have in diamonds.
Yeah, and of course diamonds are very useful, but scarcity is very important to the subjective value of anything. So they look good, and everyone's wife wants one. It's pricey. But with that said, we're looking at places like Norway. We've reported on the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund on several occasions, and talk about a bit about what is happening with the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, and how they can see similar things happen in South Africa.
Well, the sovereign wealth fund, as I said, they invested 70% in stocks almost currently. And you're seeing a leaning towards, trying to manipulate the markets up. As I said, there's constant, trying to use the sovereign wealth funds in the countries that they're at. They're in China. They're in all of the Arab countries almost have a sovereign wealth fund because they funnel money from their oil revenues in there. But what you've seen lately is Norway, for example, have been, having to take a whole bunch of money out of the sovereign wealth fund to save their economy, there, because Norway could have gone really bad if they didn't have that cushion that they had. But the problem is, what are you going to do when the market crashes? The Norwegian krona, of course, have been able to go up and gain value towards the US dollar during a crisis. So usually what you've seen is that you got kind of leveling out of the mass losses that they got. And in 2008 they lost over 40% in their stock portfolio. Well, at that time they only had 30-40% in stocks. Well, now they have 70%, so that amount of money is going to be bigger. And then of course they're talking about how the Norwegian krona always goes up with commodities. I think you're going to see a major problem, because the Norwegian krona isn't backed by any commodities or nothing. It's backed by the same idea of people being forced to pay taxes in order to pay off the interest on the created money. It has nothing to do with anything of value. The Norwegian krona is the same as the US dollar, is the same as the Turkish lira, is the same as any fiat currency all across the world. It's not backed by anything, and that's the problem. It's the belief that this is going to continue forever. This whole systematic process of going up and down like that. And you just invest in the long term. That's what they think teach you if you go and invest your money in mutual funds or anything like that. You just keep it in there. You're fine for like 80 years. Or, well, 40, 50 years. But anyways, you take that money in there. And then suddenly, what if I ask, financial advisors or fund managers, what if you retired right at the time when a crisis happens? What are you going to do then when your income has suddenly, when your funds have dropped, 50, 60, 70%? What are you going to do at that time? And they're usually blank staring at me because they have no clue what to say and respond to that, because you're basically screwed. So you got to take your own responsibility. Start to funnel your money into things of value. And with a sovereign wealth fund in South Africa, I don't think they plan on taking actual gold from their country or Krugerrands they're going to put into their accounts. I don't think that's going to be a part of the idea, Josh. I think it's going to be the same old, like any other sovereign wealth fund around the world, that are just holding paper fluff.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ramaphosa, of course, is very, very, very authoritarian. I mean, there's nothing new when it comes to government. All governments are authoritarian. All governments are a form of collectivism. And that is a major issue here, is a collectivism side, when you see what's happening with white South African farmers and stuff. As much as you might not like Lauren Southern, her new film Farmlands actually does break that down very well. And it's an issue that we're not supposed to talk about, but it's a very real issue. And it's something that, as individuals, we should look at others as individuals, not judge people by their color, their nationality, any of that. We are individuals, and we should be free and not pigeonholed into these groups, divided and clashed against each other, so we ignore the real problems of government.
Yeah, and that's kind of a warning sign. You were talking about, confiscation of farms. Well, look at what Zimbabwe did pre-2008. They started to confiscate farms, and of course, there was nobody to pay the loans that the farmers had. So the banks started collapsing, and they just started printing a whole bunch of money. So like
hyperinflation, $100 trillion bill.
I think we actually covered this in another YouTube video that we did. You should take a look at that and understand what they're doing wrong in South Africa when it comes to this, and how it kind of just shows you that they're repeating the same mistakes that Zimbabwe did and ended up in hyperinflation.
We've done about 900 videos at this point, so I'm not going to be able to link you with the right one, because I'm not spending all night looking for that.
Just search it up.
Yeah, just search up South Africa World Alternative Media. I don't know. But with that said, I think that what we've seen in Norway, and the amount of power that the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund has over the world, assets around the world.
1% of all the stocks in the world. Think about that.
Yeah, that's insane. And it's a heavily manipulated system, and it keeps getting propped up. And once that comes down, it's going to be coming down really hard. And look, the world reserve currency is going to go down. All the currencies will fall like a domino effect. We will see a crash happen. All fiat currencies eventually revert to their true value of zero. They always have. They always will, going back to 1024 AD. In China, as well as the markets, they are highly bubbled up. We have investor confidence, but not fundamental value. Those will collapse. Now, the fundamentals are off the table due to the level of manipulation in the monetary system as well as in the markets. So you can't put a date on the crash, but you know it's going to happen. And once this whole domino effect happens, I mean, no sovereign wealth fund is going to save them. It's going to be a massive chaos, and it doesn't have to be, because there's ways.
Sovereign wealth fraud.
Yeah, but there's ways for individuals to protect themselves and prepare. Self-sustainability, financial education, financial responsibility. It's incredibly important. Be independent, not dependent on some centralized entity, especially government, especially central banks. Come on. We've learned this from history over and over again. And we are not victims of ourselves as much as we are victims of this massive order. And we have to break free from that and do whatever we can to apply the right solutions. So look at food, water, shelter, self-defense, so you're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. And of course, gold and silver as protection, and it's protection of purchasing power. And it's not meant to be an investment. So this is our opinion, not investment advice. It's very simple, though. We look at history and we learn from history. Then cryptocurrencies that are decentralized and have fundamental value, scarcity, application use, demand is important, of course. And I mean, there's a lot of really bad ones. In fact, most of them are bad. So you have to do your own due diligence, folks, and figure that out for yourself, because we can't tell you invest in this, invest in that, because it's irresponsible. You as an individual need to read the white papers, understand what these cryptocurrencies are, what they provide, what they do, what they change, what they innovate, and from that make your own decisions. Bottom line, John?
Well, bottom line, I just wanted to just mention what's happening in the emerging market. We've done several videos on it, Josh, but that is the predecessor. That is the start of the failure of the dollar. You get all the the other currencies that are laying underneath the US dollar they're starting to fall like little dominoes right now, right? And sure enough, you will see the US dollar fail as well at one point, and there's no stopping it. You got to protect yourself, as Josh said. If you don't, we will lose a lot of money, and we might end up being broke and homeless.
Yeah, and the global pension shortfall is set to hit, what was it, $50 trillion?
400.
400. Oh yeah, $400 trillion. That's way worse. $400 trillion by the year 2050, I believe. Yeah. That's where the 50 came from. And we're not going to make it to that point. People aren't going to have their pensions. You have to be independent, go outside of that system, and not depend on the banks and the government to be there for you and support you, because they benefit from your debt servitude. So anyway, decentralize everything, protect your purchasing power, and be independent. Rule yourself. Thanks for going into this with us, John. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth,
be the change.
Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized by YouTube as they bring in the ADL to flag all of our content as hate speech. Also check our Bitcoin address in the description as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also check us out at Steemit at Josh Sigurdson, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency, Steem that is. So don't forget to check us out there and find us at Anarchapulco 2019. I know it's early, but this is such an exciting event coming up with Ron Paul, Judge Napolitano, David Icke, Larkin Rose, Jeff Berwick, all the usual characters, and it's going to be amazing. So we hope to see you there. Make sure to check the link for Anarchapulco below and use promo code WHAM to save as much as 15% on your tickets. We hope to see you there. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.